Hello, my name is Corbin Irwin. I'm talking today about cloud services and security concerns. We're going to be talking a little bit about how we can identify and discuss the virtualization platforms that are available for us as a business, describe and discuss cloud services, the service models and their uses in particular use case scenarios, describe service-oriented architectures and what that means for us as a business, compare and contrast deployment models for cloud services, and discuss cloud computing in general and how it relates to security and legal concerns. So let's start with virtualization platforms. There are many different types of virtualization platforms, and essentially all that means is how are we creating virtual machines, how are we creating a virtual environment for us to work in. This is something we'll often see in cloud computing. The types of virtualization are operating system virtualization, where the actual virtual instance or virtual machine is ran within an operating system or on software before it goes to the hardware level. There is the hardware virtualization, something like hypervisor, which installs directly to the hardware. There is server virtualization, which allows you to run different virtualization platforms and different maybe operating systems from that. We can see a picture of an example of that to our right here, where we see the app running on the operating system, running on the virtualization platform, then on the hardware. There is also storage virtualization, which is where multiple storage devices are combined into one virtual storage platform, which allows a lot of different devices to be accessible like they are one and can really ease up storage management. There are several different platforms that are common and seen. VMware is one, which is a software-based one, something you may have used professionally or personally. There is Citrix, there is Azure, there is Oracle, and then Amazon, which is becoming very, very popular. These are the top 5 that most people will see. So cloud service models. We're going to talk about 4 different models and how each of them has their own ups and downs and which one might be best for us. So let's talk about software as a service first, or SaaS. So software as a service is a cloud model that allows access to cloud-based software where underlying hardware and software is controlled by the vendor and the applications are accessed through an app or web browser. So there's benefits to this. It has a low need for local resources as everything is loaded through a web browser. It doesn't really take much of a local resource to get on there. Any laptop or Chromebook could work for a lot of these resources. And the processing can be done quickly because it's done through the cloud. Updates are done by the vendor, and it's easy to scale because we're able to quickly create new instances when we need it. Some concerns are that we don't have control over all the information that is being used, and that it's kind of a turnkey solution. We're not able to change much, so it may not work for all of our needs. It may be fits some, but doesn't fit others. It does have a network requirement that can be kind of high because there's a lot of information passing back and forth. So that's something else to consider. Do we have a good enough network for this? And are we able to use it in a way that integrates with other network connected programs that we use? Or is this information simply going to have to be passed manually? So that's something to think about. Depending on how we use it, it can be a great solution though for a lot of different problems. Then we have platform as a service. Platform as a service is a cloud service where user applications are hosted and use underlying platform functionalities built into the cloud. So essentially it's using different components to develop software that we need. It's very little need for local resources, as most of the computing power is done using these pre-made cloud resources. So there isn't much that we need as far as local resources. It can be very fast and easy to develop tools that we can use within this cloud interface. And it gives us a little bit more control than our previous method because we are coding or creating some of the software ourselves. So it can fit our needs a lot better. Network-wise, it's going to have a requirement about the same, but it does have a little bit better integration because we can create components ourselves again. We do need to think about security with this. We are able to use some mitigations and we're able to control, again, a little bit more about the software, so it can be a much better solution for that, though it is going to take more time and knowledge to get set up. So infrastructure as a service is a type of cloud where the provider hosts and maintains the server infrastructure and clients utilize the infrastructure however they need. So essentially what you're given is a server that you can create the software for. So this could require more local resources such as an IT team and computing power to actually create this. It's going to take more time to set up as well, but it does give you a lot more control. Local control over these solutions can be very high and we're able to integrate it within our local network. It could be more network intensive depending on how we use it and if we tie it into our local network, but it gives us a lot of solutions that we don't get with other services. We can customize it however we want, which allows us to have a more custom secure solution. It's a great solution that could cost a little bit more than some of the other turnkey solutions, but something that we should definitely consider. It can be billed as you go though, so if we're not using it a ton, it may save us money as well. If we decide that we're only going to use the cloud occasionally and not as a full-time solution, if we pick a pay-as-you-go methodology, it could save a lot of money too. Things to consider with this are security and the time it will take to set up. Another cloud service is desktop as a service. It's a cloud solution where providers host a virtual desktop for clients. There are two types: persistent, which you are able to re-log into over and over like a traditional desktop, and non-persistent, which will go away after an instance is ran. Desktop as a service has quick access to powerful machines. This can help minimize the requirement for local computing power while having access to high-end machines and applications, a lot of computing power, quickly and cheaply. It also is lower than purchasing and maintaining high-end machines, and you can have full control over the machines as well. So IT teams are able to make them more secure. It's very easy to scale as well. If you need more machines, you can create more. If you need less machines, you can get rid of the subscription as well. They're typically subscription-based. It's more of a traditional desktop experience, like I said, so the IT team can manage auditing tools and security that way, though network integration will be determined by the vendor, so it's important to pick the vendor carefully to see if you can tie it into your network. So let's talk a little bit about service-oriented architectures. Service-oriented architectures are methods of making component software that are meant to be reusable. Standards are put in place to make sure that the software components use common interface standards as well as similar architecture. These components are made so that they can be developed quickly, reused. So, for example, instead of making a piece of software that connects to a banking system, for example, and checks a bank balance, you can use a already created piece of software to do that. Essentially what they are is component pieces that are made using a common architecture in a common way so that they can be reused over and over again. It's something that is very useful for the cloud so that you're able to develop solutions quickly and integrate them fast. So let's talk about deployment models. There are several different deployment models that we can see. There is a public cloud. A public cloud deployment model uses a commercially owned and operated service that is open to any user, and the owner controls the infrastructure and its administration. So public cloud is a publicly available service. Anyone can sign up and they can use it. There is some benefits of this. It's a low cost to entry. No hardware. Setup is easy because they typically will do it themselves. Very easy to scale, and you don't really need a whole lot of knowledge to get this set up because they have a team that will do it typically. The downside of it is that everyone could be using it, so if there's a large-scale attack toward the service, you're likely to be included in the targeted group. There is a private cloud. Private cloud is controlled by the user. There's no third party involved in ownership. Setup maintenance is done by the owner as well, or the user as well. The phrase internal cloud, because it is something that is used for a company, it's internal and not available to anyone else, is also used to describe a private cloud. Private clouds are mostly owned by private companies. They are costly to set up because you have to buy all the equipment. It takes a lot of maintenance because you have to do it yourself. You have to make sure it's also secure, so all of your solutions that you do integrate into it need to be checked, and they aren't going to be checked on a larger scale because you're the only one using them. So it will take a little bit more active IT time to make sure this is a safe solution. It can have better compatibility with existing software, though, because we're able to code it however we want. So if we do have legacy software we're using, we're able to code for that. So a hybrid cloud. A hybrid cloud allows us to use the best of both worlds, of both the private and the public cloud components, and offer very cost-effective and secure solutions for businesses. How this works, we'll give an example. So let's say there's an application that we have, and the application has a lot of customer-facing interfaces. We can host those on the public cloud, and our cost is brought down. But we want to save certain private information, and we want to have it cloud-based. We consider that to a private cloud, which is the actual physical hardware is internal. Thus, we're able to use the cost savings to host a lot of the public-facing stuff, but we're able to keep the private information on our private cloud. So thus, we have a hybrid cloud. It's a really great solution for a lot of businesses. There also are community clouds, systems and services that are created to service a specific group of individuals or organizations. The infrastructure is shared and it addresses the needs of the community. So this is used to address the needs of the community as a whole, and it allows us to basically have a collection of people who are like-minded creating a solution that everybody can use. Typically, this is ran by a third party. The upkeep is done by a third party or by managing members of the community. Security, storage, legal, and privacy issues. So there's a lot of things to consider when we're talking about cloud. We need to understand all of the different components that go into making a decision to go cloud-based. We've talked a lot about the deployment methods, virtualization, and different cloud deployment models. So let's talk a little bit about the issues. Security. Who is in control? When looking at this security, we need to consider what business model we have. We need to discuss how we can continue to have security controls, if the controls that are put in place by the provider are going to be enough, or if we need to have our own. We need to consider cost as well, because some turnkey solutions often don't give us enough control. They might be cheaper and easier to set up, save us time, but they're not going to give us enough security control. Private solution might be great for security control, but is going to cost us a lot. So we need to kind of find the happy medium where we can operate there. We do need to also think about storage. What information is stored? How is it stored? Are we trying to keep most of our storage locally? Are we putting it all in the cloud? Are we using a hybrid method? The other thing to consider is, are we doing backups? Are we keeping local backups of our information as well? Or are we simply using the cloud as a backup? And do we have multiple backups within the cloud as well? We can use multiple services to do so, and it would be a very safe way, but maybe a less secure way to have our data. Legally, when we're talking about data and about information, are we allowed to have this information? Are we allowed to keep it and store it, and are we allowed to transfer it to a third party for storage? Legal considerations such as lengths of contract and what upkeep the host company is responsible for are also important to consider. We need to consider if we're able to store customer data on the cloud and make sure that our terms and services reflect that we are going to be doing this. So that's something we'll need to update. Additionally, we need to make sure that there are no types of issues with the information we're storing legally, that we are allowed to do so even beyond the terms of service. And then privacy. Are we informing the customers that their data is going to be stored this way? Are they okay with it? And are we doing our best to make sure that their privacy is paramount? We need to protect it, and so does the cloud provider that we choose. All of these things need to be considered. Within my research, I use several different references, which you'll find here. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you might have about what we've discussed today. There are a lot of ins and outs with cloud services and the different service providers that I'd love to discuss with you further in detail. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for listening.